We are extremely pleased to have as our speakers today Compuware Account Consultant Bill Clayton, Solution Consultant Greg Lackey, and Product Manager Irene Ford, who will join us for Q&A. With that, I'd now like to welcome and hand things over to Bill. Bill?
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this Compuware webcast. If you're an existing Compuware customer, then we thank you for your business. If you're not, well, hopefully you will become one soon. Today we're talking about protecting sensitive data, or test data privacy. This subject is a high priority with many executives, as stored personal data is very sensitive. Many data breaches are from the inside, and there is a lot of interest in test data privacy from companies wanting to get ahead of the game before their name is front page news. We're going to show how the Compuware data privacy solution can make a sometimes difficult and frustrating task much easier. We will demonstrate how to create simple obfuscation rules, how to get to consistently obfuscated data, and we're going to talk about what sets Compuware solution apart from other vendors. So why implement Compuware's test data privacy? 30 years ago, most enterprises that built business systems such as banks, insurance companies, retailers, and others created test data by copying production data down into their development regions. This created a risk. Personal data could be seen by another level of employees. After the turn of the century, many of those companies started to obfuscate that test data. As time went by, legislation also became a driver which caused many organizations to be required to protect their production data. The challenges of keeping data protected, well, there are many. Implementing a solution can be very complex with high resource overhead, but with Compuware, it doesn't need to be so. Sensitive data is usually widespread and resides in many tables and files, and often hundreds or thousands of fields are impacted. Disguise rules of other vendor solutions are for each individual sensitive field and can be positional, so when structure changes occur, the rules must be redefined. Additionally, creating and securing of translation tables and other solution infrastructure can be troublesome. Every customer has unique needs, and canned obfuscation methods don't always fit, and customization is often difficult. Greg is going to walk you through a short demo of the Compuware Test Data Privacy solution and show you how it can significantly ease many of these burdens. So what will we see in this presentation? Compuware's Test Data Privacy Manager, we will see Compuware's Data Privacy Manager executed from our Topaz IDE. We will demonstrate the centralized management of roles and translation tables, how different roles will have access to different functions within file-aid data privacy. The Data Privacy Administrator role has the highest level of authorization, giving complete access to all functions within data privacy. We'll also show how disguise techniques and customizations with the benefits of dynamic rules and rule coverage. Finally, we'll show the audit report. The audit report is optional when you run a job. Because of time constraints, we won't be able to show you everything that the tool has to offer. But please don't hesitate to contact us if you would like a more in-depth, personalized demonstration. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Greg.
Thank you, Bill. Well, thank you for your time today. And this is our Topaz IDE that Bill was speaking about. It is an Eclipse-based user interface, and it has, with Topaz, it's kind of a single stop where developers can have an interface into all the Compuware solutions, and also including data privacy. Compuware has tried to stick to the theme of simplify and visualize for developers to help their life and their jobs be a lot easier. I don't want to undermine a data privacy project because we all know data privacy is a large project to implement, but I think you'll see some of the things that we present with our data privacy solution can make it much simpler, easier to manage, and a lot less overhead. So one of the first things that we added with our Compuware solution was the ability to map roles to specific users. And this role mapping will allow you to assign different levels of authorization to different users. We have everything from a data privacy admin that can really access anything within a data privacy project, and we have auditor access, we have project admins, and even subject matter expert that may not have access to some of the privacy rules and infrastructure, but they'll have access to defining rules to their specific application. So this was a big step in reducing some of the headaches that we typically used to have to do in ACF2 or RACF to buckle down security for data privacy. The second thing we've done is we've brought resource administration and centrally managed it within the product. What does that really gain us? Well, translation tables, for example. Many years ago, I would see a common theme of redundant translation tables on the mainframe and distributed environments. Now, because these tables are managed centrally, and we can define all those within the product, it can be in SQL Server, Oracle, DB2 UDB, mainframe DB2, flat files, wherever you would like, and we can specify the access path for those translate tables, which we have a variety of those as well. We have hashing, unique value translation that will guarantee a unique value is returned, just random shuffling within from a translator or value table, sequential from first value straight down sequentially, and we have two-tier translation. For example, if you were to have an address table for the entire United States, we have the capability for you to pass us a state first, like maybe Florida, and then you wouldn't have so much data to hash in. We would go ahead and we would subset that table down to only Florida addresses and hash within those. So that's both efficient and also you'll see how it simplifies the creation of our privacy rules. Some other things we've centralized is the credentials to access those tables. You can also put your encryption keys, and they can be administered centrally by your data privacy admin. And also, we have the ability for you to add and write custom functions and add them to the product as if they were part of the product itself. So we're going to look at a data privacy project and kind of describe the steps involved in implementing a data privacy project with the Compuware data privacy solution. There are three different basic sections of a data privacy project: the data elements, the privacy rules, and coverage. And we're going to take a look at those. First of all, data elements and what we call source data identifiers, or SDIs. That's kind of the magic sauce here for our dynamic privacy rules. Years ago, we've been in data privacy for many, many, many years, back prior to Y2K. And originally, when we rolled out data privacy, it was, as Bill mentioned, at the field level. That means I had to go into every single schema for every single table, every single copybook for every single file, and define privacy rules for every sensitive field. And they were positional. Once those rules were defined, they were like, okay, at position 12 for a length of 8, we need to apply this. So what does that mean in today's agile environment where table structures are changing and file structures are changing constantly? Well, it would mean that you would have to go back in and redefine those rules, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of times. So that's why we re-architected our solution and came up with dynamic privacy. So we define data disguise rules at the metadata level at data elements. And then we use source data identifiers to identify what fields and columns are associated with a metadata element. We're going to take a look at a few in our example today. First of all, I have a few already defined. There's an email data element, and you can see we have a source data identifier for that. And what this will do is it's basically going to find any field or column name with the word email, and I have wildcards on each end. So it could be personal email, email 1, email 2. Any of those would meet and be identified to be associated with email. We can also do specific field names. In this example, we have a specific field name for a table or object, and you can even restrict things down to a specific schema, table, or if you would like, and do literally a single field. And also note that they can be used for inclusion or exclusion. So if there's a field that you don't want included, you can easily exclude those with the SDIs as well. Then the last one we have, we can see an example of multiple SDIs for one field. We have SSN as a data element, and both fields and columns with the value EIN and SSN wildcarded on each side would be identified. Now let's add a new data element, and we're going to call that phone, just to give you a feel for exactly what is entailed in defining elements and SDIs. I can just type a name in, and notice we have quite a few processing options here. Those are for normalization of your data during execution time. We also data passing through our data privacy manager to Unicode, so that we have eliminated a lot of problems we used to hit with the different layouts of data in a distributed environment versus a mainframe environment. So that Unicode normalization helps as well. But here in defining this, you can do trimming, you can work with uppercase, lowercase, you can do value alignment, you can tell us what you want to do when we encounter invalid data. Do you want to set it to a literal or exactly how you would like that handled? What to do when we encounter null values as well. The good news is the defaults are pretty consistently good for beginning, so I can just take the defaults and click Finish for my example today. Secondly, for a source data identifier, I'm going to name this phone SDI, and I'm going to come down and say wildcard, phone, wildcard. So we'll pick up any field or column name with the word phone in it. Now, some other things that I've already briefly mentioned, but you can restrict it down to a specific DBMS or copybook name. And another thing that I want to mention is we do have some other normalization functions. Just as an example, if I click apply that and say edit, we throw us into our predefined normalization functions. And here's an example of SSN in and SSN out. If I were to plug these in for a Social Security number field, and let's just say my organization, sometimes Social Security number is stored with dashes, sometimes it's not. Well, what this function does is look at the field. If it has dashes, it will remove it on the SSN in field and make it just a numeric field. Then once the disguise is done, the SSN out will put it back in the exact same format that we found it. SSN, if it does not have dashes, it has no work to do, so it will do nothing. But as a result, all SSNs would be disguised consistently without the dash being any kind of impact to the disguise routine. So you can massage data, and as you can see, we have many, many more functions that you can massage or customize your data going in and out, and they can be customized as well. So if I hit finish here, now I have my phone source data identifier as well. So let's move on to, and with rules, we also have many different options available with rules. And I want to show you some that come out of the box, as well as the ability to customize rules. For example, this email replace, note that there's rule logic involved with that. If I click on build, it takes me into the expression builder, where I can build customized rules or work with data. In this example, we're taking the data element email and we're setting the value to a literal value of johndoe@anywhere.com. And so that will be set to that literal value. We also have an expression validator to make sure that what you've typed in is valid. Also, we have many, many, many other functions that are available for use in the expression builder. We have string functions. We have date functions that will allow you to age dates by months, days, years, forward or backward. So a lot of different date functions. We have custom functions that can be added, and you can write and add your own within the product. And we even have data privacy functions that do like check digit processing for many different types of check digits within credit cards and account numbers, etc. So very easy to customize, very easy to validate what you've customized before execution. So if I click OK here, now I want to go to my name translate. I have a rule for that, but I also want to add a rule action, and I wanted to show you using the centralized management of translate table how easy that is to do. All I have to do is say add, pick translation as a method, and then I can say xlate name. And then notice I just have drop down showing me all of the different tables that are available for translation and the access path to reach that. So I can pick SQL name hash as my table and hash as my access path. Click next. I need to pick an actual value to hash on for a row pointer to point to a return value. And then all I have to do is say, hey, what do I want to bring back from my translate table? Here's all of the fields that are available, and also if I want to mask, which we'll get to momentarily. Click finish, and we're done. So that centralized management of translation tables makes it very easy for implementation time to plug those in and build the rules. Now let's build one for our phone. I'm going to type in phone, and I'm going to do format preserving encryption. And note the other out-of-the-box translation disguise methods. We have format preserving encryption. What does that mean? Well, we all know that industry standard encryption algorithms really return unreadable data and destroy test conditions. Format preserving encryption will change alpha characters to other alpha, numeric to other numeric, and it will leave and ignore special characters and spaces. Thus, it'll maintain your test conditions and not destroy your data for testing, and it still looks legible. You've seen some of the different types of translation. We also have what we call composite, which is very powerful. It's like an auto parser. For fields like name and address, it can identify the different data components within those, like house number, surname, etc., and break those out to their own data element automatically during processing. It's really a lot faster than parsing it manually and gives you a lot more power to work on individual components of a field. And then there's overloaded, which just means that sometimes tables and files, rows or records can have multiple layouts based on a particular business function. So overloaded allows you to identify which layout is applied to a specific record depending on the data in that field. So we're going to pick Format Preserving Encryption and click Next. I could pick, I'm going to give this a name first. I'm just going to call it phone for simplicity's sake. I could pick an encryption key, and an encryption key is needed when you decrypt. You would have to know that key, and it's part of the algorithm for the encryption. So I could pick one that's centrally managed, and maybe that my data privacy admin put into the tool, or you can also use a user-defined one, and it can be really whatever you want to put in that field is fine. I can select encrypt or decrypt here, and then I need to identify the project resource that this will be applied to. So I'm going to click my phone field, and I'm going to put a field mask on that. I'm going to say, no, 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 I don't want you to encrypt the first 3 bytes of this field, whether it be an area code or maybe a phone prefix. I could type Ys for the rest of the field, but it's mutually exclusive so that it saves you some keystrokes. So now we're going to click Finish, and now I've successfully built a rule for my phone to encrypt those phone numbers. Now, once I have my data privacy rules defined, and you say this is dynamic, how do I know the impact to my organization and my enterprise? It's kind of like a black box. If it's going to dynamically identify this at runtime, I need to know as a developer what impact is this going to have. That's why we have coverage reporting. So coverage is a way to dynamically see exactly what impact, what's identified by the SDIs to relate to an element, and to see what rules are applied as a result. So in my example here for today's demo, I've brought in 3 different metadata definitions from my enterprise. Here I have just a PDS that contains copybooks on the mainframe for flat files or vSAN files, etc. Then I have a DB2 database where I've brought in several DB2 tables from the mainframe. And thirdly, I have a SQL Server database out there on the network. So to see the impact, I merely select one of the copybooks or table definitions, and I can click View Coverage. Notice I can run a batch version on multiple objects simultaneously. But I'm going to click View Coverage, and immediately it comes back and shows me, hey, there's a telephone number field. It was identified for data element phone, and the phone SDI picked it up. As a result, the phone disguise rule will be applied. Oh, and there was a contact telephone as well that was identified, and it was identified by the phone SDI, so it's the second field that will be disguised by the disguise rule phone. Then I could come to my DB2 table and also view coverage on one of those. For this sales rep table, I can see that Social Security number was identified by the EIN SDI, and as a result, SSN encrypt will be applied. We call 2 phone numbers and an email address as well. And just to give you an example of the SQL Server, we can do the same thing. Notice we have tabs opening up for all of these, so I can move in between them if I want to see those as well. Another cool feature of the coverage is that if I see something that isn't included that I do want included, or that might be included that I don't want included in data privacy, I can easily click data elements down below here, And for example, for full name, and this is not really a working example, but let's just say for full name, I want this last name field to be included or identified by an SDI. I can merely drag and drop from my coverage and automatically add that as an SDI. And I could edit it and say exclude or include or anything I want. So that drag and drop capability is another way to ease the burden and make it very simple to implement the solution. We're going to get rid of that because it's not a full name. I just wanted to use it as an example. But you can kind of get the understanding of what we can use that for functionality-wise. Now, once I've done my coverage and I know the impact to my environment and I have my rules defined and my data elements defined as well, I'm actually ready to disguise data. Any of the Compuware products, your FileAid, your FileAid RDX, any of our related extract products on distributed or mainframe dynamically talk to our data privacy manager. We also allow the capability, we've introduced APIs to both platforms, and this can also be called from a Java program, etc. So the dynamic privacy is applied at execution time when you execute anything that moves or massages that copies the data. So now that we've finished our data privacy project, let's see it in action. I'm going to close that, and without leaving Topaz, I'm going to select the FileAid EX perspective, and I'm going to go to a related extract that I have built for a SQL Server database. I can quickly and easily see visualization of that related extract and what it does. I can move it around so it's a little more readable. And I can see the extract. I can even see dash lines for user-defined data relationships and solid lines for RI that was imported from that DBMS catalog. So I can see a lot of information about what I have defined here. That's another webcast for a different day, but just wanted to show you the visualization of the extract I have defined. Now to apply privacy, I can go to the Data Privacy tab. I can hit Browse. It's automatically going to take me to my Test Data Privacy server, and I can select the project that I want it to dynamically call at execution time. Once I've done that, I can merely right-click and say Execute, and my extract is off and running. And during the extract, all of the table schemas are going to be scanned by the data privacy. I get a report showing how much data was extracted from each table, a summary report of the extract, so to speak, and I get a privacy report that summarizes what data privacy was applied to what objects, how many values were written, changed, etc. So I can actually see kind of an overview of what happened with data privacy. If I want more detail, we provide logs for our data privacy where I can actually go in and see a before and after image of the data, and I get asterisks denoting which bytes changed. So in this example, here's one of our Social Security number that's been changed to a different number. Here's a phone number. You can see the first 3 digits are the same, but the last digits have been changed. And here's an example of our email where we've changed it to the literal johndoe@anywhere.com. So we've defined our privacy rules, implemented and executed it during our extract dynamically. Now, what about the mainframe? We see distributed data here. What about the mainframe? Well, without even leaving Topaz again, I can come over to a job that I have defined for FileAid RDX that points to this same project, and I can simply submit it straight from Topaz. I get notification that it was submitted. I can go to my Host Explorer perspective, and I can actually see the jobs in the queue as they execute, and I get notification that I can click on that will pull up the job output for this mainframe extract. I also get, just like in the distributed environment, my report showing how many rows were executed from are extracted from each object, and it summarizes the data privacy rules that were applied to those objects. So both for the mainframe client server, I dynamically called these at execution time. So if the structures change, we don't care. If the field moves from position 1 to 10, we don't care. We'll dynamically discover it. So with that, let's kind of now go back and recap what we've covered today in today's webcast. So with the recap, we have seen how role-based access can be defined for individual users. We saw how we could centrally maintain translation tables to make it easy to point, click, and use drop-downs to easily define translation rules. We saw how dynamic privacy rules are defined at a metadata level so that they're not impacted by today's agile environments and cause a lot of headache and maintenance overhead. And then we also see that we have a variety of out-of-the-box disguise techniques and customization capabilities to create rules that are specific to your organization. We saw coverage reporting that lets you see into the black box and see exactly what the impact is going to be to your entire enterprise. And we saw the audit reports, which can be used during implementation time for debugging and to make sure you're getting what you expect, and ongoing for compliance substantiation. Those reports can be used as well. So we've seen that, and hopefully it's been helpful to show you that we can ease that burden of implementation of data privacy in your environment.
Thanks, Greg. Before we start answering questions, which I see a few are coming in right now, we like to again encourage everyone to fill out the short survey to be entered into the $50 American Express gift card drawing. There will be 3 lucky winners selected from today's respondents, so I do encourage you to do that. And with that, let's start off our Q&A with Irene.
Excellent. Bill and Greg, thank you very much for sharing this update with our customers. And as we said, there are some questions here. The first question is really, what types of data are actually supported by the Compuware solution?
Greg?
Okay, thank you. So the data types, we support all mainframe data types, flat files, VSAM files, IAM, BDAM, IMS, DB2, pretty much anything on the mainframe is supported. In the distributed environment, out of the box, we have connectors for Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, UDB, and let's see, did I miss any? Sorry, go ahead, Shannon. We also have the capability of using JDBC connectors to connect to really just about anything that a JDBC connector is available for, and process that as well. Irene, do you have something to add? I'm sorry.
Really, it's any data source that can be read by the FileAid products can be disguised by our data privacy solution. And as you said, we also have an API which allows data sources that cannot be read by FileAid to be disguised using the very same rules that are applied by the FileAid products. Okay, our next question is, where does this disguised operation actually take place? Is this going to be running on the mainframe, or is it going to be running in the distributed environment?
That's a great question, Irene, and Compuware has kind of landed where we believe the most efficient processing occurs in the environment where the data resides. So as a result, we have twin Java data privacy execution engines that execute in the distributed environment. They can execute in Linux, Unix, Windows, etc. And we have one that runs on USS in the mainframe environment. That way, we can disguise that data resident where it is much more efficiently. Some of our competitors will drag large amounts of mainframe data through the network down to a distributed box, run it through a disguise engine, and then pump it back. We just have found that it's much more efficient to do it in the environment that it resides.
Janet? Okay, thank you, Greg. The next question we have is about the extracted data. After the extract is complete, where is the data stored before it is loaded into the tables themselves?
So there are different methods of extracting and loading data. For our Compuware-related extract products, the data is extracted and put into a holding file or an extract file prior to loading. However, there are specific examples of where we can use some of our components to do disguise in place or update in place, etc. So for our related extract products, it is stored in an extract file that would then be loaded to the, let's just say, extracted from production. The data is disguised when it hits that extract file so that when it gets to test, there is no sensitive data in the test environment. Then that data can be loaded. You can do your testing and corrupt the data and reload it and reinitialize it and work with it any way you want to.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is, are data solutions from Compuware aligned to PCI standard for data protection? And I think I can answer that. Data solutions is certainly a critical part of our data privacy solution. You have the ability to choose which fields are going to be disguised. So as you create projects, you can include within that project all of the fields that are required to be disguised by any of the various standards. So fields that are required for PCI would certainly be included within the project that you are using for disguising. Greg, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, we do also partner with a discovery tool that will actually identify fields that are in different components of legislature, PHI, PCI, all the different groups of legislature that can help identify what those are as well.
So the next one is really geared at the fact that everyone's short of resources these days. So the customer is asking, what resources are typically responsible for implementing test data privacy?
So we really see that vary from site to site. Very large organizations sometimes have the luxury of having a test data team that their responsibility is maintaining test environments. If they do, they're typically the one that implements a solution like this. In smaller clients that we have, sometimes it's a SWAT team, so to speak. You have maybe a data privacy administrator, a DBA, and a manager of some sort on a team that work together in implementing the data privacy solution, and the SMEs in each application can identify the rules associated or the elements associated with their application. So it really depends on how your organization is structured and what resources you have available.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, and then we've hit our time limit. So, Irene, please, one more.
This is really speaking to the need for consistency in disguising data between our mainframe and our distributed data sources. And the question is really, do you need to have the same translate table on each platform, or can you just have one that's accessed for disguising both mainframe and distributed data?
That's a great question, Irene, and I touched on that during the translation tables, but With centrally managed translation tables, you really can have that data in one central location, and you can actually see that data very easily from regardless of where the disguise is happening. So I could put my translate table on, maybe if I have more resources on the mainframe, I can push, I can actually use DB2 UDB or DB2 main 0S for my translate table, or maybe I have a more stronger structure in Oracle or SQL Server. So we can have that in one place, and it doesn't matter if it's mainframe disguised and it's an Oracle translate table, or if it's distributed disguised and it's a DB2 mainframe table. We take that headache away with the centrally managed translate tables.
Excellent. So Janet is telling me here that we are pretty much out of time.
Yep. For those questions that we didn't get to answer today, we will directly follow up with you after the webcast. I'd like to thank everyone for their time for attending today's webcast and apologize for any small glitches that may have occurred during the webcast. The replay along with the questions will be sent out to you shortly after the broadcast. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to myself or to Compuware. Thank you everyone for attending, and this concludes our presentation. Have a great day.